From Bad Boy. By September and the opening of school, I was deep into sports and became a baseball fanatic. Along with the pleasure of playing baseball, there was the joy of identifying with the ball players. I loved the Dodgers. Maybe it was because Mama loved the Dodgers, and especially Jackie Robinson. All summer long, kids playing punch ball, hitting a pink Spalding ball with your fist, and then running bases drawn in chalk on the streets, had tried to steal home to copy Robinson. We even changed the rules of stoop ball, of which I was the absolute king of the world, to include bases when more than one kid played. You played stoop ball by throwing the ball against the steps of a brownstone. The ball coming off the steps had to clear the sidewalk and land in the street. If it landed before being caught, you could run the bases. My speed and ability to judge distances made me an excellent fielder. We did occasionally play actual baseball, but not enough kids had gloves to make a good game. My new school was Public School 43 on 128th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, across from the Transit Authority bus terminal. Mrs. Conway was my teacher, and it took me one day to get into trouble with her. In the elementary grades I attended, reading was taught by having kids stand up one at a time and read aloud. Mrs. Conway had us up and reading as soon as the readers had been handed out. When it came to be my turn, I was anxious to show my skills. I read quickly, and there was a chorus of laughter in response. They were laughing at my speech. "Slow down and try it again," Miss Conway said. I slowed my speech down and started reading from the top of the page. Johnny Brown started laughing immediately. Johnny always had something to say to make the class laugh. I threw the book's sidearm and watched it hit his desk and bounce across the room. "Don't you dare throw a book in my classroom," Mrs. Conway, red-faced, screamed. "Into the closet! Into the closet!" I had to stand in the closet for the rest of the morning. That afternoon, Miss Conway divided the class into reading groups. I was put into the slowest group. I stayed there until the next week, when the whole class was given a spelling test and I scored the highest grade. Miss Conway asked me to read in front of the class again. I looked at Johnny Brown eyes as I headed for the front of the class. He had this glint in his eye, and I knew he was going to laugh. I opened my mouth, and he put his hand across his mouth to hold his laugh in. I went across to where he sat and hit him right on the back of the hand he held over his mouth. I was sent to the principal's office and had to stay after school and wash blackboards. Later in the year, it would be Johnny Brown who would be in Miss Conway's doghouse for not doing his homework, with her screaming at him that he couldn't be a comedian all his life. He went on to become a television comedian and is still doing well. Being good in class was not easy for me. I had a need to fill up all the spaces in my life with activity, with talking, sometimes with purely imagined scenarios that would dance through my mind, occupying me while some other student was at the blackboard. I did not want to get good marks in school, but they were never of major importance to me, except in the sense of winning the best grade in a subject. My filling up the spaces, however, kept me in trouble. I would blurt out answers to Miss Conway's questions even when I was told to keep quiet, or I might roll a marble across my desk if she was on the other side of the room. The other thing that got me in trouble was my speech. I couldn't hear that I was speaking badly, and I wasn't sure that the other kids did, but I knew they often laughed when it was my turn to speak. After a while, I would tense up any time Mrs. Conway called on me. I threw my books across that classroom enough times for Miss Conway to stop my reading once and for all. But when the class was given the assignments to write a poem, she did read mine. She said that she liked it very much. "I don't think he wrote that poem," Sidney Aronofsky volunteered. I gave Sidney Aronofsky the biggest punch he ever had in the back of his big head and was sent to the closet. After the incident with Sidney, Miss Conway said that she had quite enough of me and that I would not be allowed to participate in any class activity until I brought my mother to school. I knew that meant a beating. That evening, I thought about telling Mama that the teacher wanted to see her, but I didn't get up the nerve. I didn't get it up the next day either. In the meantime, I had to sit in the back of the room, and no kid was allowed to sit near me. I brought some comic books to school and read them under my desk. Miss Conway was an enormously hippie woman. She moved slowly and always had a scowl on her face. She reminded me of a great white turtle with just a dash of rouge and a touch of eyeshadow. It was not a pretty sight, but somehow she made it all the way from the front of the room to the back, where I sat reading a comic without my hearing her. She snatched the comic from me and tore it up. She dropped all the pieces on my desk, then made me pick them up and take them to the garbage can while the class laughed. Then she went to her closet, snatched out a book, and put it in front of me. "You are," she sputtered, "a bad boy, a very bad boy. You cannot join the rest of the class until your mother comes in." She was furious, and I was embarrassed. "And if you're going to sit back here and read, you might as well read something worthwhile," she snapped. I didn't touch the book in front of me until she had made her way back to the front of the class and was going on about something in long division. The title of the book was East of the Sun and West of the Moon. It was a collection of Norwegian fairy tales, and I read the first one. At the end of the day, I asked Miss Conway if I could take the book home. She looked at me a long time and then said no, I couldn't, but I could read it every day in class if I behaved myself. I promised I would. For the rest of the week, I read that book. It was the best book I had ever read. When I told Miss Conway I had finished, she asked me what I liked about the book, and I told her. The stories were full of magic events and interesting people and witches in strange places. It differed from Mystery Rides the Rails, the Bobbsey Twins, and a few Honey Bunch books I had come across. I realized I liked books and I liked reading. Reading a book was not so much like entering a different world, it was like discovering a different language. It was a language clearer than the one I spoke, and clearer than the one I had heard around me. What the book said was, as in the east of the sun, interesting, but the idea that I would enter this world at any time I chose was even more attractive. The me who reads the book, who followed the adventures, seemed more real than the me who played ball in the streets. Miss Conway gave me another book to read in class, and because it was the weekend, allowed me to take it home to read. From that day on, I liked Miss Conway. I still didn't get to read aloud in class, but when we had a class assignment to write a poem, she would read mine. At the end of the year, I got my best report card ever, including a glorious needs improvement in conduct. It was also the golden anniversary of the school, and the school magazine used one of my poems. It was on the first page of the Jubilee issue, and it was called My Mother. When I saw it, I ran all the way home to show Mama.